Your eyes open because a scream tears the city in half. It isn't a person, it's the factory whistle, brass lungs and steam and command slicing, straight down Orchard Street at 5 a.m. in January. A sound that makes even the icicles on the fire escape shiver. You're 12. On payroll, they call you Joey because the foreman says your Italian name Yeppe sticks in his teeth. Your family says Yeppe at home, softly, like a blanket. The mill says Joey short, sharp, and cheap. You share a corn husk mattress with your brother Marco, 9, and your sister Anna, 7. Every move the three of you make sounds like dry leaves being crushed. The window is a frost pane. Ice is blooming on the inside. Your breath is a small train in the dim kerosene glow. Up, Yeppe Ma's whisper is worn at the edges. The match flares, the lamp wakes, and there's your mother's face, 32 years old with 50-year eyes. In this room all of your life squeezed into a 10-bit world. The walls sweat, then mildew, then peel, like they're tired of standing. You slide your feet down. The boards are blades. You think about not moving, just this once. Let the whistle scream to an empty bed. But hunger lives here too, and it keeps better time than the whistle. Ma hands you a heel of bread, a tin cup of something hot that pretends to be coffee. The bread softens when you dunk it, your teeth throb. Anyway, there's no dentist in your future, only pliers and courage. Papa, you ask, already knowing. Docs, she says. Went at 4. If the hiring boss points at him, your father will throw his back against ship ribs all day, and money will cross the table. If not, the money stays with the ships. He'll come home with his hands in his pockets and church quiet in his eyes. Joey. Anna sits up, hair a snarl, hope a flare. Will you bring candy? Sure, you lie, Pecolina, sure. Lies cost nothing, and by a moment of warmth, the hallway is a throat that never learned to clear itself. No windows, just the wet cough of Mr. O'Brien and the scalpel-sharp wail of the Goldstein's latest baby. Your fingers slide the greasy handrail. 4 flights down, you go careful past that stair with the missing nose. The one. That bit Mrs. Kowalski's ankle last month, and took her off the floor 2 weeks without pay. The door yawns you onto Orchard Street. Cold has a body. It punches. You swear you can hear it laugh. The world is moving. Pushcarts and horse steam and the clatter of cobbles. A meat vendor is sawing at something that might once have been proud. A heap of vegetables mourns under ice. A newsboy, he can't be more than 8, sings a headline he can't possibly understand. You step around something dead that used to be a cat, unless it used to be a rat. The city makes fewer promises than the ships that brought you here. Other kids pour out of other doors, shoelaces, whips, jackets performing the idea of warmth. There's Tommy Flanagan, 13, 2 fingers short on his left hand since last summer. The company paid him in 2 days' grace to rest and learn to be less clumsy. Cold enough to crack a church bell, Tommy snorts breath. Going ghost. At least we ain't down the coal, you say. You think of your cousin Salvatore in Pennsylvania. 11 years old, in the anthracite. Tunnels boy lungs, blacking faster than the soot can keep up. You picture his letter from 3 months back, the smudged tear marks in the corners, the dirt that never left the paper. They say progress, Tommy mutters. Figure it just means getting hurt quicker. The mill comes into view, like a fortress that forgot to stop growing. 5 stories of brick, soot painting the dawn. Anderson textile. A modern marvel, the paper said when they added the new spinning room. From the street, a marvel is a belly with 1,000 metal teeth. Inside the entry, warmer only by insult, The time clock stands against the wall like a lazy judge. You shuffle with the other kids and the tired grown faces that are not actually old, not yet, just used. The adults punch first. Seniority. Over 14 is a kind of adulthood here. Over 30 is a rumor. Kowalski no kin to any Kowalski, you know, strides the line with that oak stick he carries like a second spine. He's a wall of a man, the kind that got promoted for being a movable fist. Move it, rats, he says. Because it costs him nothing to say it and buys him the day's first smile. Your turn, smack. 5:31 a.m., 1 minute late. A penny gone. Your lungs take one last taste of outside air and then forget it for 14 hours. The loom floor is a storm you step into. The noise is a living thing that climbs into your ears and builds a house. Cotton fog floats, not soft, not pretty, just patient. The heat begins climbing already, even in January, even in the first hour. By 2 in the afternoon, this room will be its own season. You tie the handkerchief, find your frame. The rows run to a far wall that never quite arrives. Marie Reed hair knotted back like it's tethering her life works the position next to yours. She's 11, but speaks like she's already outlived something. You awake, Joey, she says. I will be, you better be. Machines don't forgive the sleepy. You're a doffer, now a promotion from sweeper, meaning you snatch full bobbins and replace them with empties, while the world spins faster than your nerves. A doffer's dance is dart dash reach dash twist dash swap dash vanish. A second slow makes a mess. 2 seconds slow makes a story with fingers missing. Everybody knows Tommy's story. The whistle is done talking. The machines take over. You breathe cotton and oil and watch the numbers you'll never see get fatter on Harrison's ledger up in the glass office. Bobbins, someone shouts to rows over. It's Michael, Ali, 8, with hands like matchsticks and a brave that scares you. His sleeve is too big, or the machine is too hungry, or both. 1 heartbeat later, the cloth grabs him and tries to make him part of itself. You don't think. You don't ask. You lunge straight through the rule that says never leave your station. Your left hand catches his arm. Your right hand finds a harness bar. The fabric tears with a scream that is not a voice, and you both tip backward hard enough to see stars. What's this? Kowalski's stick cracks your shoulder. Pain blooms white. His sleeves sway 2 pennies, he says, like a priest giving absolution that costs you dinner. Michael hiccups. The cry back down into his chest because children here learn that crying is a luxury. It goes like that for hours. Work is not time. Work is a color that fills you. It's the taste of metal, water, the sting of cotton needles under the nails. The way your body learns to be a tool that belongs to someone else. Somewhere around 9, the brake horn barks. 15 minutes to choose between the toilet line, the water barrel, or food if you've got any. Today you hold it and gulp the barrel because your throat has been sandpaper since dawn. Marie, half a potato and a scrap of bread that lost its war with a mold bloom. Want a bite? She asks, generous in a way the city never is. I'm all right. You lie again. They say Roosevelt might run, she adds, like saying summer, to a February window. Politicians don't punch in, you say, and it comes out sharper than you meant. Maybe he will. Someone's got to. The horn sends you back. The room seems louder because it was quiet for one breath. Your ears ring. The older women wrap rags around rags for their feet. The older men wrap silence around their anger, and the children wrap themselves in the only armor they can afford each other's glances that say, I see you, You matter. Timothy Brennan's scream arrives 10 minutes later, a sound that should not fit inside a human throat. The story, half shouted down the rows, arrives faster than the mechanic, his arm, the gears, the sheet. He is 10. He was. Harrison appears like a verdict with legs, ledger open. Eyes already calculating how a boy's limb becomes an entry on a balance sheet. The machines never fully stop. The accident whistle does not mean we care. It means the accountants will adjust. By noon, you've learned today's version of the lesson. The mill doesn't hate you. It simply doesn't notice you. Hate would be warmer outside. Lunch is the mercy of breathing air that hasn't been inside a machine yet. The ground is iron. You ration bread like arithmetic. Tommy joins you, rolling his shoulders as if to check they still exist. His old man came down, he says. Brennan's screamed the paint off the office door. They'll starve him for it. You going to Donna's tonight? You ask. Tommy's eyes flick sideways. Who told you? Everyone told me. Talk of a walk out. 10 hours. Safety guards. Pay for the maimed. Maybe also the moon while we're ordering. Pinkertons will chew us up. Maybe, he says, or maybe there's more of us than them. The afternoon is heat. The windows sweat. Your fingers go through the stages. Burn, sting, numb. Numb is the worst, because numb is when you don't feel the next mistake until it's part of you. Marie hums an Irish tune that sounds like a field in the rain. You almost ask her to keep going. You don't, because nothing tender lasts here if you look at it too long. A belt upstairs snaps like thunder, and for one impossible moment, everything holds its breath. Silent sexual quiet lands on your shoulders, like a coat you forgot existed. It fits. It's beautiful. You could cry for it. Then the mechanics swear and climb, and the magic evaporates. Sucked back into the teeth of progress at 4. A boy laughs, wrong high and cracked-tanned, then doesn't stop until an older woman folds her arms around him and gives him 5 minutes to be human. At 6-20-9, you can stand inside your bones again because the night shift is already at your back. A supervisor named Brennan, no relation, hands Harrison a page. They confer. They never look down at the kids, not once, and somehow that's more offensive than the stick. Punch out. 6:31. Your day becomes a number that fails to add up. Outside, the cold forgives nothing, but it doesn't charge a fee for breathing. Tommy drifts off to his tenement. You aim for yours. Anthony Torino, the 15-year-old, who thinks his height is a personality, steps into your path. Anger coiled from something you said earlier, or maybe from something the world said to him first, and then it doesn't happen. Marie and limping, Stefan simply move between you and the punch. Not tonight, Tony, Marie says, like she's tired of the script. He looks at all three of you. Exhaustion wins. It always does, eventually. He peels off, cursing no one in particular. For flights up. Ma has kept the lamp low, so home looks older than it is. The soup is modest and hot and therefore perfect. How was work? She asks. The nightly ritual with the only answer either of you can stand. Fine, you. Say a word that means we survived. You eat slow. You always eat slow on nights when there was a sheet. Candy. Anna asks, almost not asking because she is learning how to stay disappointed. Tomorrow, you say, and it hurts more than your shoulder. Later, in the black hallway that knows everyone's footsteps, you carry a poultice made for Stefan's foot, because herbs are cheaper than doctors, and sometimes miracles come in jars that smell like bitter tea. 5 Points at night is another country, one where hunger is a thief with an easy stride, but you walk like you have a purpose. Because you do. By the time you get back, the city sounds softer, the kettle hums on the stove. Marco's elbow is already in the air, hunting your ribs in his sleep. You lay down on the corn husk's last stubborn crackle and let the ceiling disappear. Midnight rings. From somewhere holy you haven't had time to visit. 5 hours until the whistle. 5 hours to be a boy. You take them like medicine. You sleep like you earned it. You did, asterisk. Morning is not morning. It is a demand with steam in its throat. The whistle again, 5 a.m., as if the night were just a blink you took without permission. Your clothes wake up like boards. Sweat and cotton dust turned them into stiff armor that cuts. You slip into yesterday because there is no today's outfit in a room where the word outfit would start a fight. Ma has coffee water and a new guilt. A thumb of cheese she must have traded a favor to obtain. Eat, she orders, and the yellow square is so bright against the tin it looks like a summer memory. Papa made it home and back out again without a sentence. He is getting good at economy of words, of muscle, of hope. Docks at 4, if he's chosen money. If not, he spends the day swallowing the insult and pretending there is nutrition in the swallowing. Marco watches you lace boots that were a better fit when they were your father's. When do I get to work? He asks, like a boy might ask, when do I get to ride the big wheel? Not yet, Ma fires back. You stay in school. The rule is made of love and string and will snap the second rent and reality. Pull hard enough, the stairs are a broken instrument you learn to play without falling. Orchard Street is performing the same opera. Pushcarts tuning, horses steaming, newsboys preaching apocalypse for 2 cents. Tenement fever spreads, a headline sings. It will be tuberculosis until it's scarlet fever, until it's cholera, until it's the rent. The Anderson Mills mouth opens and eats a line of children and parents and something else, invisible time maybe, or softness. You're practicing not getting noticed. It's a skill. It might be the only one they can't charge you for. The time clock says 5:31, like it's a joke it tells you daily. Inside the spinning room, the heat climbs the ladder of your spine. Harrison is a shadow in a window above, pencil like a future you will not have. Kowalski does his rounds with the stick that has a better union than you do. You step to your frame and the world clicks into its cruel comfort. 1,000 moving parts agreeing to pretend your fingers are part of them for a fee. Marie knots her hair tighter than yesterday, as if to teach it manners. They say, factory inspector came last week, she says, low. And, they say, Harrison hid the little ones in the storeroom, sent the loud coffers to the alley to breathe quiet. The law is a guest here, you mutter. They show it the nice parlor once a year. You work. Dart dash reach dash twist dash swap dash vanish dot. Doffing is a prayer you say, with your hands and hope. The God listening does not demand blood. Kowalski's stick cracks the table near Anthony's hip. Faster, he says, not looking at faces. He is. Talking to numbers that look like people. The cotton fog has flavors now. Hot oil, wool mouth, the sour of fear. The air is not air. It is a schedule. Michael Ollie is back at his frame, hair slicked with extra water. Sleeve pinned with a mother's safety pin that looks brave until it doesn't. He catches your eye like he's learned the habit of finding safe harbors where he can. You nod. It's the only protection you can offer that won't cost you the day. The morning's first fine arrives before the morning's first breath. A jam on your fourth bobbin, thread snarling like it's inventing a new word for no. Your fingers try to be Stefan's quick and precise and unafraid, but your hands are tired and your shoulder remembers Kowalski. Stefan appears anyway, limping like the floor has opinions. Hold it like this, he says, his hands doing a little ballet that turns anger into order. The thread agrees to behave. He vanishes before a foreman can ask why kindness costs the company money. Somewhere around 7. A girl you don't know begins to sing. It's Irish without a country attached minor, keys bending like reeds. Marie joins on a breath you almost can't hear under the machines. A second voice adds a spine to the song. Nobody in charge notices, or everyone in charge understands that songs are cheaper than guards and can be docked at the pick end of the week if necessary. The accident whistle. Again, nearer this time. You don't look. Looking is treason against your quota. But word travels, whispers hop stations like stepping stones. 3rd floor, new boy, caught hair. Emergency stop worked like a stubborn miracle. Harrison comes down the aisle with his ledger and a face that looks allergic to empathy. He stops at each station long enough to measure a life's worth in inches of thread and columns of digits. When he reaches yours, he uses your given name like a weapon. Yeppe, he says, letting the foreign roll do its work. Behind yesterday, jam. You answer, fixed. Excuses don't print cloth. His pencil clicks. That sound is money leaving. From your pocket if you had a pocket. From your table if you had a table. From your mother's shopping sack if there were anything to shop for but bread and hope. The 15-minute break arrives like a rumor of mercy. For toilets for 200 bodies produces mathematics you can hear. The line is a fist fight and a polite negotiation at once. You choose water again and pay for it later with a bladder that begs at the wrong time. Eat, Marie says, pushing half of a potato into your palm. You push it right back. It ping-pongs between you until a supervisor's shadow passes, and you both pretend you are not human beings in the open. Newsboy shouted something about a governor visit yesterday, she says. You think that was for us? Most visits are for whoever reads about them, you say, not for the people being visited. She chews and looks older because of the chewing. The horn returns you to the mouth of the room. The afternoon heat has moved in with the suitcase. The cotton hangs heavier. Harrison's hand signals up at the glass office. Make a ballet. You realize you can read now. Move the belt, men. Lock the door. Note those names. At 1:15, Michael's sleeve tries to marry him again. He jerks back, eyes wide, and the machine misses a meal. The look that passes between you is an entire language. It means, I am still here. It means, me too. A new girl appears at the station where the polish. Girl lost her arm yesterday. 8. Maybe 7 in good light. Terror tries to wear bravery like a stolen coat on her face. Her mother's eyes hover from 3 rows over, working. A machine and a prayer simultaneously. You shouldn't, and you do. She panics when a strand wraps her hair, and you leave your station long enough to gently untangle her 30 seconds that cost 3 pennies and prevent a lifetime. She whispers something you don't speak with words you understand perfectly. Gratitude can cross any border. At 3, you hit the wall. The whole room does. Time loses its verbs. You are a set of motions under a sun that lives inside. The cotton finds arteries you didn't know you owned. You pinch your own thigh to stay present and focus on stupid details to keep from floating away. A nick on the table. A smear that looks like a map. The way Marie wraps her handkerchief in a sailor's knot that never slips. Stay sharp, she murmurs, and because she says it, you try. The mechanics arrive for a different machine that's begun to sing a wrong note. You can feel the floor muscles under your feet, pulleys and belts and shafts, humming the city's new prayer. You catch yourself imagining all this stopping at once, how loud the silence would be, how heavy the quiet shift change bleeds in from the far door, like a tired night people with day eyes. A supervisor you don't know takes a quick census with his chin. The night kids look clean in a way that's insulting. You were that clean 12 hours ago. You cannot imagine it. Punch. Kowalski barks at the hour that isn't mercy so much as the end of a kind of sentence. 6:31. You should get a diploma for surviving daily. The mill gives you a slip. Outside, the cold bites higher on your ears. The street has the look of a crowded dockships of humans crossing in opposite directions, trading day for night and hope for rent money. A newsboy sings, Roosevelt demands reform, with the same joy he'd sell a murder. You don't know yet what those words will cost or buy. You just know your bed is as soft as an argument you can't afford to win. Tonight there is a knock. A Russian mother from 2 doors down. A baby with a fever like a lighthouse. Ma splits her herbs in half and hands away our Sunday. We help each other, she tells the universe, and it doesn't answer. But the room feels less alone when she says it. Marco asks, will we go back to Italy? Anna asks, will I have a job like you? You tell a story about lemon trees that is 70% lie and 100% necessary. They sleep with the taste of brightness in their mouths. On the mattress, the corn husks try another small song. Your hands throb. In their own language, you think about Roosevelt and belts and ledgers, and whether your name is a word or a price. Midnight again. 5 hours delivered like a loaf. You take it in both hands. Asterisk, the new sign is waiting by the time clock. A grateful worker is a happy worker. Somebody stenciled it in a font that wants to be your uncle. Harrison reads, a notice like he's narrating. A weather report, by order of management. Discussing labor organization is grounds for termination. Participating in work stoppage will be prosecuted. Quotas increased 10% to offset recent disruptions. Disruptions, Tommy mutters, like boys bleeding onto the floor. The room pretends not to hear itself laugh. You punch in. 5:31 again, because the clock never forgets which minute it loves to bite. The floor is already noon hot in its heart. The cotton has a taste of pennies today. Maybe yours. Kowalski prowls with the stick in his fist like a metronome that hits back. Harrison watches from the glass, trying to appear as if he can see all, the way down to your fingernails. The Pinkerton man, rumors said, was seen taking notes last night outside Danis. You pretend you didn't see him see you. Work language. Lesson 300. A foreman's silence costs less than his words. So you pay attention to which one he chooses. Marie is pale today in a way that scares you. There is a tightness around her mouth you've not seen. She ties her hair even. Higher like altitude could save it. You all right? You ask. Fine, she says, and it means no. She shifts and you see it, the red blooming through her skirt. She stares past you, past the frame, past the day. Work doesn't ask if you are a girl. Work asks if you are an engine that won't stall at 7:30. The Polish word for grief appears in the air 3 rows over. You don't know it, But you know what it means when a mother's voice drops through the floorboards. Sophia, the little Greek sweeper from yesterday, vanished for 10 minutes on the waste run. 10 minutes is a lifetime here. When she reappears, she is a daughter again and not a ghost. And her mother goes back to her machine without a hug, because hugs cost jobs at 8. A boy vomits on the floor, and the heat picks up the smell and carries it around like a parade flag. 2 older workers haul him out by the elbows and hand him to the alley, his paycheck gone, his pride expensive. The barrel water tastes like nails when you go to it next. You drink anyway, 9 o'clock. Break is warfare with bladders and mercy. The toilet line is a language of elbows. You choose water again and then hate yourself a little because you know exactly when you'll need to go and not be able to. Roosevelt, someone whispers near the barrel. What about him? Here. They say he's here. You snort. Sure. And the Pope's sweeping the 3rd floor. You return to the frame because you have learned that hope is a tool the foreman sometimes use on you like a stick. And then the door opens. Not the one for kids. The important one. A group enters with notebook men, camera eyes, and at the center, energy arranged into a person. He is shorter than your imagination. He is bigger than the room. Theodore Roosevelt, governor, teeth-like. Architecture, gaze like a hand on your shoulder that makes you stand straighter without touching you. The whole floor tries to work harder without being told to. That kind of magic only visits from above. He walks the alley between machines like a man who has walked alleys before. He stops at Marie's frame. How old are you? 13, sir. How long do you work? 14 hours, sir. He writes. The camera eats a moment in white. He moves to you. Name, Joey, sir. You choose the American one he can say without fog. How old? 12. He takes your hands in a glance. The cuts. The cotton black under your nails. The way you don't wince because you learned not to. He asks a dozen more. The answers are arithmetic you hate. 50 cents, $3 a week for toilets. 200 workers, 1 emergency stop that takes 4 men and a crowbar to convince. Harrison arrives with his ledger and a tie that seems to have tightened itself. He says words like progress and necessary and the American economy. Roosevelt looks at him as if he's a splinter and then looks away. And somehow that's worse. He stops at little Stander, 9-year-old, whose mother begged yesterday. How old are you really? The boy's eyes jump to his mother's. The silence says age and no and hunger all at once. 9, sir, he whispers. Roosevelt turns to Harrison. The room, against its own rules, pauses. Even the machinery leans in. This ends, Roosevelt says, quiet. Teeth showing but not smiling. Children, he points at the row, at the floor, at the air. These are children. Harrison starts the script. Their families need. Then pay the adults enough, Roosevelt snaps. And now you see it, the part of him that could wrestle and write and argue a city into doing something it doesn't want to. He means it. Meaning isn't law. Meaning isn't bread. But you can feel the heat of it from where you're standing. The camera pops. The notebook scratches. He makes a promise to the room, not to you, and you listen anyway because hope is a thing you swear you won't pick up and then do when it rolls to your feet. He leaves awake. For a full minute, the air holds its breath again, and then the stick cracks the table. Back to work, Kowalski says. He needs the machine to roar. It's the only song he knows. You go back, but something unscrews in your chest and doesn't. Go back on right. The day tries to prove that nothing's changed. Harrison walks with vengeance in his shoes. Quotas jump like a dare. The Pinkerton man appears at the door, splits into two more, and takes a walk through your lives with a notebook he doesn't let you read. At 1, the heat turns biblical. Children sway like wheat you do not get to harvest. Little Stan folds. At 2, blue-lipped, his mother breaking 3 rules at once to drag him toward air. You leave, you're fired, Harrison says, polite as a butcher, and she says in broken English, fire me. And you hear a sound inside yourself that might be a decision being born. The jam hits your frame at 3. You hold your breath. Try the Stefan trick. He appears anyway, ghosting in with a limp and a grimace. Like this, he says, and the thread obeys the familiar hands that saved it yesterday. Your foot, you say. He shrugs. It's there. We need the money. At 3:30, Marie sits down on the floor without meaning to, and then is lifted by 2 women who carry 1,000 years between them. She says she's all right with her mouth. Her body gives a different interview. They steer her toward the medical room, which is a shelf with rags and a bottle with a label half gone. 15 minutes, Kowalski grunts, because training. Someone new costs more than letting someone live, for brings a new chaos. A grinding note on one of the big frames turns into a flying gear that buries itself in a wall. 6 inches from a boy you know by face and not by name. Harrison turns purple for the company, fires a kid who wasn't in charge of physics, and writes words that look like justice upside down. At 5:30, Harrison gathers everyone with his voice. Tomorrow, he says, you show up, or you don't show up again. The pink slips will be ready. The blacklist grows a root system under the city that can find you anywhere cloth lives. Marie returns, and you split a piece of bread the Polish girl pressed into your palm at 2. Good kind with butter like a story. You try to give it back. She points at her hair, at you, at gratitude. You hand half to Marie when the foremen aren't looking. She eats tiny bites like she's apologizing to each crumb. The horn for shift changes comes late, like the day didn't want to end without reminding you it could. You punch 6:31, a time that now feels both like parole and a dare. Outside, the air has the smell of a match that hasn't been struck yet. Groups not on the sidewalk. The older workers talk in 3s and 4s. Tommy drifts to you like he didn't mean to. We walk tomorrow, he says. Statement, not question. 10 hours. Safety guards. Pay when we bleed. My ma, you begin. My little ones. Same, he says. All of us, that's the point. I'm 12. You're a worker, he answers. That's the only age they care about. Across the street, a Pinkerton smiles, the way a knife does. You look at the kids around you and see the shape of the city's secret. Everything tall and proud is standing on the small bones of children, who learned a language the mill taught them for free and took everything else for rent. That night, Ma hears you out without interrupting. Papa stares at the table like it's showing him the future. You don't strike, he says finally. We need the money. If I don't, you say Anna will be in there in 2 years, maybe 1. If you do, he counters, we don't eat next week. He's right. So are you. That's the trick the city plays. It makes right fight right until both wrongs win. After dinner, you tell a story about the ocean like you've stood with your feet in it. You haven't. You've only seen it from a ship. You were scared to fall off. The story is for the kids and for you, because tomorrow is a cliff you are walking toward on purpose. Midnight, 5 hours. The whistle is patient. Sleep with your fists open, you tell yourself. You will need to. Close them tomorrow. Dawn doesn't arrive so much as it remembers you. The whistle rips a seam in the dark and you climb through. Same as always, hands that don't unclench. Boots that drink the street slush through their mouths. The tenement door that sticks in winter like it owes back rent. You move because not moving is a luxury sold at a price you can't count to. On Orchard, the city is already bargaining with itself. A fishmonger lifts a lid and the smell sprints up the block ahead of him. A pushcart man arranges apples with the care of a jeweler, turning the least wormed faces outward toward the day. A woman in a scarf argues with a landlord in 2 languages and still loses in both. You step sideways around a spill of coal ash that looked like last night finally gave up. Donnie's, tonight. Tommy says, materializing at your elbow like the idea itself grew legs. Irish first, then anyone with lungs. You think they'll let a kid in? Doors for the thirsty, he smirks. Windows are for the curious. The line at the time clock has the hush before a match strike. Yesterday's sign still grins. A grateful worker is a happy worker. Someone finger-smeared a mustache on the word happy. Someone else wiped it off. You can't decide which someone is braver. Punch, 5:31. The clock bites its favorite penny out of your day and chews with satisfaction. Inside. The air wears its heat like a borrowed coat too big, dragging on the floor, picking up everything it passes. Cotton dust is a weather now. You can feel its fronts move. A cough at one end of the room arrives at the other with different vowels. Kowalski's stick taps out a tempo the machines already know by heart. Harrison's ledger walks the gantry above like a priest blessing the aisle with subtraction. The Pinkerton man exists in rumor for the moment. He's a rumor with a hat and a jawline, but rumors here are as real as rent hands. Marie says without looking, in the way people say rain when it's already on your shoulders. You glance down, the scabs cracked overnight into tiny smiles that aren't friendly. You flex. Your fingers protest in 6 languages and then obey. Like anyone living here, the morning speaks the mill's grammar to you in the usual lessons. Do not stand still unless you've learned to do it while moving. Do not breathe without filtering it through cloth. Do not exist so loudly that anyone above the floor can hear you. Sophia crawls under the looms with her dustpan, little brush a metronome. Her mother, 3 rows away, does the world's most dangerous multitasking, feeds machine and watches her child grow up wrong 1 inch at a time. She meets your eye for a fraction. Gratitude in the look like a coin she can't spend. At 7, the accident whistle hiccups and stops false alarm, the worst kind. Everyone tenses for a story that doesn't arrive. The not arriving becomes its own kind of story. Shoulders drop, but don't forget where they were. Break at 9 is a battlefield mapped in seconds. For Privers, 200 bodies, 15 minutes. Do the math without using numbers. You fold yourself out of the line and head to the barrel. The metal taste is back today, like the water was stored in a pocket full of nails. You drink anyway because your throat is a chimney and the mill has been burning a wet fire all morning. Got something, Marie says, and you think she means a story or a song, but she means bread. Real bread, not the tile you bang on the table to soften. She splits it with courtroom care. The butter stripe down the middle is thin as a prayer, but bright as a window. The Polish girl, she says, nodding toward the station you untangled. Yesterday, her mother sent it. For the hair, she said. Marie mimics the woman's gesture, fingers moving in the air like they're untying life itself. You take your half and tuck it into your pocket to share later. You're not noble. You're a boy learning to ration hope without smearing it. Donnie's, you ask. After, she says. If I can stand. If you can't, I'll lean you. She smirks. You'll need a longer ladder. Back at the frames, the room turns up its volume a notch you didn't know existed. Heat runs its tongue along the windows. Oil finds new places to shine on your skin. You catch yourself counting how many bobbins to a minute, how many minutes to a fine, how many fines to the number that means your mother has to choose between coal and food. Stefan limps through like a lesson, his boot a soaked bandage. He nods without stopping. Nods are cheaper than words and go farther. When he passes the end of your row, the black at the edge of the leather smears the floor. You watch the smear like it might turn into a map out of here. Around 11, a woman begins a low, slow hymn the supervisors can't hear because they're trained to ignore anything that isn't a ledger. You feel the melody find purchase in your spine and hum there. Even Anthony always an angle, always an edge goes, still. Like the song knocked a brick out of him where his armor needed a door. Eat, you tell yourself at noon, because your body has stopped filing requests and started sending ultimatums. Outside, the cold is a doctor with a precise cure. You draw it in, hold, let it cut the cotton out of your lungs in little strips. The ground doesn't care who steps on it. That indifference feels like mercy compared to a machine that learns your name so it can fine it. Lunch is a slow duel with a piece of bread. You've saved the polish-gifted slice. You split that half for your pocket, half for the mouth you need to keep moving. Tommy flops down with the grace of a sack. He chews like work itself is inside the crust. Donnie's boiled tonight, he says. Whispers lasted till midnight. Women are angrier than men. Because men get to pretend they have choices, you say. Women don't. He nods. My ma said she's bringing the little ones to the church basement if it turns ugly. Priests have to feed the hungry, she says. That's in the job. Pinkertons don't care what's in the job. They care what's in the way, he says, and looks at your hands. You're gonna hide those when they start writing. They're not new, you say. They're not news, he shrugs. Sometimes old wounds make better pictures. You finish the last bite and save the butter memory on your tongue for later. A funeral wind moves down the street. One of the buildings lost a baby last night to a fever nobody could afford a doctor for. The little procession that passes is made of women. To men who look like they didn't get picked at the docks today, and a carton with a responsibility beyond its size. Nobody stops. Everybody somehow stands aside anyway. The city is good at letting grief pass without losing its pace. Back inside, the afternoon is a longer hallway. You walk it the only way you can, one motion after another. You fix a jam that almost becomes a headline. You see Sophia drift too close to teeth she doesn't recognize yet as teeth, and you tap the floor with your boot once. The signal you and she and Marie have made up, and she slides back, eyes big with thanks. Harrison walks the aisle like he's measuring men for suits they'll never own. He pauses by the new Russian boy, yesterday's vomit, today's implacable stare, and writes. Names, Marie murmurs. They always collect names before they collect bodies. Maybe Roosevelt collects laws before they collect bones. You offer without much belief, and she almost smiles at your effort. At 2. The roomer arrives in work clothes. The Pinkerton jawline you saw in your head appears on the floor with two brothers in hats. They don't touch anything. They write. Down everything. They smell like cigar and permission. They wear the look of men who've learned that the fastest way to win is to make everyone else believe they already have. Kowalski straightens. Harrison's face acquires a new kind of confidence. The room's hum shifts half a note lower. It's the note people make when they're trying to be braver than they feel. Marie sways. It's small, just the kind of sway a boat makes when it pretends the ocean is nothing. You see it because you've been watching her all morning, the way a person watches a candle in a draft. She works while bleeding and you work while watching, and the machines do not change their minds on either subject. Break. You whisper at 3, and she shakes her head. A tiny, stubborn no. 5 minutes, you insist, and when the foreman's shadow leans the other way, you steer her to the back where the rags live. The bottle that might be alcohol sits beside a stack that was once white. You fold a rag into a new shape, hand it to her with your eyes turned toward the nailed-up poster. Rules of safety, it says, and then lists everything the company won't pay for. You don't get to be stupid, Joey, she says when you turn back. Stupid boys get fired. Fired boys make sisters hungry. Stupid girls die. You answer, soft. Smart girls take 5 minutes and pretend they're rocks. She snorts and sits. For exactly 299 seconds, you count quietly in your head, because you refuse to give the clock another penny. Back on the floor, the Pinkertons have found perches that make them visible no matter where you stand. They are like saints in reverse icons that don't help you pray. They talk to Harrison, he talks to Kowalski. The stick visits 3 tables without needing to land. The day flattens and stretches. 3:30 loops into 4. The heat invents a 4th season. You work at the speed of staying alive. A drive belt above you throws a tantrum, and the mechanics climb like angels with wrenches. Someone laughs. Once not happy, just the release of pressure in a pipe, and the laugh gets fined. Close to 5, Stefan stumbles. Not a limper crack in the road. You catch him with your shoulder, and for a second you were 2 children pretending to be a wall. Charity hospital, you say, and he barks a laugh at the oxymoron. They'll ask for the shirt I'm bleeding in, he says. They can't have it. It's company property. After, you say, and realize the word has started meaning something it didn't last week. After has become a place you might walk toward on purpose instead of something that happens to you. The horn that means not yet becomes the horn. That means almost night shift ghosts into position, bright faces not yet edited by the day. Your replacement is a kid with ears still round with childhood. He watches your hands like the hands are a language he needs to pass an exam in. Don't let it take you, you want to tell him. Don't let it make you part of it. What you say is, watch the 3rd spindle she lies, because practical warnings live longer than poems on this floor. Punch, 6:31. The number looks different tonight. It looks like an address where you'll meet the rest of your courage. Outside, the cold kisses you hard enough to remind you you're alive. You find Tommy 2 doors down from Donnie's, under the window with the cracked putty. This one, he says, and you both go cat quiet. You hear the bar before you see it. The thumb and table rhythm of men thinking with their hands. The rise and crash of a room learning how to share a kind of fear. You ease up on the sill enough to catch a triangle of inside. The back room is church when mass is over and truth-telling begins. Men who spend their days swallowing words are letting them out. Women are their shawls and set shoulders. Babies wrapped tight against the beer chill. A priest stands near the door, not as a chaperone, but as a witness. collar white as a promise. On the far wall, a poster for a travelling minstrel show has been repurposed with pencil. Tomorrow no bells but hours dot, an older woman hair pulled back like she has no time for anything that could blow loose speaks, and the whole room leans. 14 hours is the devil, she says. Irish lilt, like a knife in velvet. If the devil had hands, he'd run these looms. 10 hours, she slaps the table. Guard the teeth, pay the blood. A man in a capelush, by the consonant sances, in English as careful as Sunday dishes. They starve us, we starve anyway. He lifts his pant leg, his shin is a bruise the size of winter. This is what loyalty buys. A younger man to clean, to tries, to make a shape with his mouth that looks like reasonable. Management must be engaged in good faith, he says, and the room shakes its head in one language. Good faith has never paid for. Cole, in the corner, a Pinkerton hat floats on the edge of the crowd like a ship that forgot to lower its flag. You feel the room clock him too. He's not the only one with a notebook tonight. A girl near the end of the borrelder than Marie, younger than the word safe, writes on butcher paper with a pencil stolen from the grocer. The letters, big and plain. Children are not spare parts. Tommy breathes, that's it, like someone finally said his own name out loud. The door opens and the cold carries in another rumor. Police will be at the mill by dawn, someone says. Owner's got an injunction ready, says another. Roosevelt was seen talking to a reporter at Manicus, says a third. And the room makes the sound people make when hope shows its face and they don't know whether to kiss it or check its pockets. Tomorrow, the Irish woman says. Again, quieter this time, the kind of quiet that makes people decide who they are. You come with your hands and your voice. If your hands shake, put them in your pockets. If your voice breaks, let it, but come. You and Tommy drop from the window when a shadow leans, and you integrate yourselves back into the alley like you were born there. You in? He asks, the question no longer hypothetical. For Anna, you say, answering a different sentence. For my ma, he nods. For the Brennan boy's arm. For the Polish girl's future. For hell, for the ocean you keep lying. About you grin despite your stomach's knot. I don't lie, I edit. Tomorrow we edit the city, he says. And for a heartbeat you let the lines sit in the air without laughing it off. You walk home with your feet arguing about every step. 5 points, spits a fight into the street and then swallows it again. The church on Baxter rings the hour like it wants witnesses. In the 4th floor hallway, Mr. O'Brien is drunk singing a tune that used to mean love and now means something like regret. 2 doors down, the Russian baby has found a lower note for its cry. Your own door cracks open at the soft of your knock. Rule for strike nights she hasn't lived through yet but somehow learned anyway. Eat, she says, which tonight means something thinner than soup and something thicker than quitting. Papa is a mountain range of shadows at the table. His eyes say storm, then say calm, then say both are out of his hands. Tomorrow, you tell them, and there is no fight only. A long look and a nod you weren't ready for. You stand with the people, Papa says at last, his voice a boot. Scraping the road. Then the people must stand with you. Church basement after dawn, Ma adds. If there's trouble, there will be, you say, and you aren't sorry. Trouble is sometimes the only thing that can pry a window open. You cut the saved, buttered bread into 3 rude stars and give 1 to each of the kids and 1 to Ma, keeping the smallest bite for yourself. Anna holds hers like it's a relic. Marco sniffs first always, A skeptic then eats with a seriousness that feels like prayer. Ma presses hers against your forehead for a second before she takes it, as if the blessing might stick. The mattress is both softer and sharper tonight. The corn husks gossip about tomorrow in their dry voices. Somewhere outside, a policeman laughs like he doesn't have a little boy at home. Somewhere else, a printing press turns lead into words that will make rich men angry over breakfast. You stare at the ceiling until the cracks look like a map. You trace them to a place where 10 hours is normal, where machines, where muzzles, where a child's body is not a unit of measure. The map has no legend, but tomorrow there will be directions. Midnight. Then a little after, because the church is late like everyone else who works for free. 5 hours until the whistle except there won't be one for you. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow you report to a different kind of clock. The one made of feet on cobblestones and voices finding their shape. The one that lives in air instead of the wall. The one that counts the minutes of a city, deciding what kind of place it wants to be. You let sleep take the first watch. Tomorrow gets the second. Asterisk. The whistle screams at 5 a.m. but you don't move. Not today, not you. For the first time since the Atlantic swallowed your ship and spat you on Orchard, you let the sound tear itself apart without your feet obeying. The room shakes anyway, because the whistle isn't just a sound, it's a habit that has learned how to live in your ribs. Marco stirs beside you, half asleep and half scared. Anna burrows deeper, chasing a dream where the world has no machines. Ma doesn't ask why you're still on the mattress. She already knows. Her face is drawn in lines you've never seen. Lines that mark both fear and something sharper. Church. Basement, she whispers, voice low enough that it won't carry through the tenement walls. Go, but you keep your eyes open. Trouble will come faster than bread. Papa has no words. His silence is a weight on the table, heavier than the empty bowls. He doesn't forbid you. He doesn't bless you either. He just tightens his jaw until it looks like the Brooklyn Bridge. And you carry that picture out the door. The gathering the streets feel wrong without the river of kids streaming toward the mill. The absence is louder than the whistle itself. Shops open one by one, shutters rattling like nervous teeth. Vendors pretend to sell, but their eyes follow the clusters of workers walking in the wrong direction. Not into the factory. Toward the square. Tommy falls in step beside you, cap low. Feels like the city's watching. It is, you answer, because even the bricks seem to lean. Marie limps up with Stefan on her other side. She looks pale, but her jaw is carved from something stronger than blood. We walk, she says, no question left in it. By the time you reach the square, the crowd is already spilling into the street. Women in shawls, babies wrapped tight, men who smell of iron and steam. Children, your age faces smudged, shoulders squared. Banners scratch the sky. 10 hours, pay for blood. Children are not. Spare parts. The priest stands on the steps of St. Patrick's Mission, collar white as chalk. He holds up his hand, not to silence, but to bless the noise. Today, he says, you claim your lives. The confrontation at 6 a.m. The factory gates stay closed. A line of police blue coats, stiff as armor, batons like promises fills the cobbles in front of the mill. Behind them, Pinkerton hats tilt at angles that say, we are not here to argue. Harrison arrives in a carriage, coat buttoned high. He looks at the crowd like it's a spill he'll pay someone else to mop. Go home, he calls. His voice is thin, eaten by the chanting that rises in answer. 10 hours. 10 hours, 10 hours. The sound hits you in the chest. It's bigger than a whistle, bigger than a machine. It's a sound that doesn't belong to the mill at all, it belongs to you. The Pinkertons move first, notebooks shut, hands on clubs. The police tighten their line. Kowalski is there too, oak stick in hand, glaring at the crowd like he wants to break it into smaller pieces. A rock arcs through the air, not yours, not Tommy's, maybe nobody's on purpose. It clatters at the police captain's boots, and the line surges forward like a wall that has been waiting to fall. Chaos is teeth, batons swing, screams tangle with chants. A woman's shawl tears. A boy is shoved down and disappears under boots. You're caught in the crush. Marie's arm in one hand, Tommy's sleeve in the other. Stefan is gone. Back. Someone shouts. Basement. The priest yells. But the crowd doesn't scatter, it holds. Bodies press against batons, not to fight, but to refuse to vanish. For every worker shoved down, 2 more take their place. In queue, don't remember how you stumble clear, only that the air outside the knot tastes like iron. Your lungs burn. Tommy is swearing with a cracked lip. Marie is trembling, but still upright. At the edge of the square, the girl with the butcher paper is back, pencil flying. Letters huge. We are not machines. She pins the sheet to the church door, where everyone can see it. The words stick harder than fists. A man with a camera snaps the scene, the banners. The blood, the faces that refuse to bow. The flash explodes, white, and leaves spots in your eyes. But you know, this is proof. This is something Harrison can't hide in a ledger. Aftermath by noon, the square is a wound. The police hold the gates. The workers hold the streets. No looms hum, no cotton spins. The city has noticed. Newsboys sprint, shouting half-formed headlines. Mill strike blood on orchard children in streets. At the mission basement, families crowd the benches. Mothers press cloths to cuts. A priest ladles soup that tastes mostly of water but feels like fire in empty stomachs. You hand Anna your half of the buttered bread you saved. She eats slow, like she knows it's more than food. Marie leans against the wall, eyes closed. Tomorrow, she says. We come back tomorrow. Pinkerton'll come harder, Tommy warns. So will we, Stefan croaks, appearing with his leg wrapped in rags, blood seeping through. They can't fine us for silence. They can't dock pay we don't earn. We've got nothing to lose but chains. The words hang in the damp basement air like smoke that refuses to clear. That night, Orchard Street is quieter than you've ever heard it. Even the vendors mutter instead of shout. Every window seems to glow with whispers. Every corner seems to watch in your tenement room. Papa sits at the table, face unreadable. He doesn't scold. He doesn't praise. He just asks, did they hear you? You think of the camera flash, the girl's letters, the chant that made the police line shiver. Yes, you say then, don't stop, he answers, and Ma presses her hand to your cheek, rough and warm. Sleep comes heavy, full of noise that isn't machinery noise, that sounds like change trying to be born. Asterisk, morning breaks, not with the shriek of the factory whistle, but with the uneasy quiet of a city waiting to see what comes next. You lie awake before Anna even stirs, before Marco begins to toss, staring at the ceiling that sags with water stains and the weight of 40 other lives stacked above. The whistle does sound, faint through the walls, but the sound is different. Now hollow, ignored. It doesn't summon bodies in the same way. Yesterday it ruled your life. Today it feels like a desperate cry from a machine that's starving for hands. Ma presses a heel of bread into your palm, softer than yesterday's because she saved the freshest piece for you. Eat, she whispers, though her eyes say what? Her lips do not. Be careful. Papa doesn't say a word at all. He just squeezes your shoulder. The way a man gives his blessing when he doesn't trust words to be enough. You step into Orchard Street, and immediately the difference is clear. Yesterday's chaos has grown into something larger. Today, the street itself feels like a river pulling everyone toward the same place. Men with sleeves rolled up, women with aprons still dusted in flour, children with faces pinched but determined. All move in one direction, toward the factory, but not into it. Not to work. To stand, the square outside the mill is twice as crowded as yesterday. Not just workers, this time neighbors, shopkeepers, even a few teachers from the settlement house. On Henry Street, some carry signs scrawled in charcoal on cardboard. Children belong in school. Pay us or starve with us. 10 hours, not 14. The police are already there. A thicker line today, batons at their sides, revolvers heavy on their hips. The pink two, standing in their bowler hats, with arms folded, as if daring someone to step too close. The mill owners haven't shown their faces, but you can feel their eyes somewhere high above, peering from the dark windows. Tommy finds you in the crowd. His lip is swollen, the bruise spreading across his cheek like ink in water. He grins anyway. Didn't think half the city would turn up, he says. Neither did I, you answer, because it's true. Yesterday was workers fighting to survive. Today feels like something else bigger, louder, alive. Marie arrives, pale and weak but walking, leaning on Stefan. The sight of her makes the younger children straighten their backs, as if just seeing her survive yesterday's collapse is enough to push them forward. You shouldn't be here, you tell her, and miss this. She tries to laugh, but it comes out rough, not a chance. The chanting begins slowly, a rhythm caught from one mouth and carried to the next. 10 hours. 10 hours. 10 hours. It rises in waves, rolling through the crowd until even the windows tremble with it. The line of police shifts uneasily. The Pinkertons don't move, but their hands tighten. Then Harrison appears. His coat is buttoned high, his moustache trimmed. Sharp, his eyes cold as iron. He climbs the steps of the mill like he owns the stones themselves and raises his hand for silence. The chanting doesn't stop, not right away, but gradually the sound thins, curiosity wrestling with fury. You've made your point, Harrison begins, voice pitched to carry. You've embarrassed yourselves, you've wasted the company's time, and you've brought shame to your families. But it ends now. Return to work, or you will be replaced. Return to work, or you will be blacklisted. Return to work, or you will starve. A hush falls like a sheet of snow. For a moment, it seems as if fear will win, that the weight of his threats will push the crowd back into obedience. Then an old woman, bent and toothless, steps forward from the throng. She wears black from head to toe, the kind of mourning cloth widows wear for the rest of their lives. Her voice is cracked, but it cuts through the silence. We already starve, she says. The words are simple, but they hit harder than any club. The chant returns, louder now, angrier, alive with something Harrison cannot control. We starve, we starve, we starve. The Pinkertons move, pushing into the crowd, shoving, striking. A boy no older than Marco is knocked down, his head cracking against the cobblestones. His mother screams and throws herself over him. The police line advances with batons, swinging, the sound of wood on bone echoing like gunshots. You are swept up in the crush, shoved shoulder to shoulder until you can barely breathe. Stefan grips your sleeve, limping, his face white with pain. Tommy's shouting, though you can't hear the words over the roar. Marie stumbles, and you throw your arm around her, just before a baton whistles past her face. Then the flash, the same camera from yesterday. A man perched on a wagon holds the black box high, capturing the chaos, the batons, the broken bodies, the banners still waving defiantly. Each burst of light feels like a weapon of its own, blinding for an instant, but searing proof into the world. They can deny your words, they can bury your voices, but they cannot erase an image once it is printed and sold on every corner. The fight doesn't last minutes, it lasts forever. The square becomes a blur of fists and shouts, and the dull thud of wood striking flesh. You don't know when it ends, only that suddenly you are outside the gates, pushed back into Orchard Street, your chest heaving, your ears ringing. The mill looms above, still silent, still starving. The crowd regroups, battered but unbroken. A man with a torn jacket climbs onto a crate. You recognize him, faintly. An Irish labourer from another district, maybe. His voice is raw but strong. They can beat us today, he shouts. They can jail us tomorrow. But every hour the mill stays silent is our victory. Every empty loom is our weapon. The cheer that follows is hoarse but fierce. You feel it ripple through your bones, stronger than hunger, stronger than fear. Marie squeezes your hand. Stefan, pale and shaking, manages a nod. Tommy spits blood onto the cobblestones and grins. Night falls with the square still occupied. Families huddle together around lanterns. Volunteers from the neighborhood bring soup, blankets, bread. Settlement workers distribute leaflets. Words printed bold. End child labor. Safety for all. 10 hours now. The Pinkertons still stand at the gates, but even they look uneasy as the hours stretch and the machines inside remain still. When you finally stagger back to your tenement, Ma is waiting at the door. Her face is pale, but when she sees you standing bruised, bloody, but alive, she exhales a breath that might have been trapped in her chest all day. Papa sits at the table, fists clenched, jaw tight. He doesn't ask what happened. He only asks, was it worth it? You think of the chants, the banners, the camera flash searing truth into the world. You think of the old widow who dared to answer Harrison, of the boy whose mother shielded him with her own body, of the workers who stood even after batons struck them down. Yes, you say it was worth it. And for the first time, you almost believe it. Asterisk, the strike doesn't stay on Orchard Street. By the time dawn rises the next day, word has already traveled farther than you imagined it could. Newsboys shout from corners in every borough, waving papers with headlines bold as thunder. Children strike. Factory silent. Police clash with workers. The photographs spread faster than fire, printed and pasted in shop windows, tacked to walls, whispered about in boarding houses and saloons. People see the faces of children, faces like yours, bloodied, bruised, unbowed. It's harder to look away when the evidence is staring at you from every street corner. When you reach the square again, the crowd has tripled. Dock workers with ropes still slung across their shoulders. Women from laundries with raw, red hands. Men from coal carts, still streaked with soot. Even shopkeepers have joined. their aprons stained with flour or grease. They stand shoulder to shoulder with the mill families, chanting the same words you chanted yesterday. 10 hours, 10 hours. The mill gates stay closed. Harrison doesn't appear this time. Neither do the owners. Only the Pinkertons stand there, stiff as iron posts, watching as the mass swells beyond control. You can almost feel the machines inside, silent and restless, hungry for the hands that once fed them. But the hands are here, in the street, clenched. Into fists, Tommy shoves through the press of bodies to reach you. The docks are talking strike, he says, breathless. Stevedores walked out this morning. Ships can't unload without them. Stefan leans on his crutch, face pale but eyes burning. If the docks go, the whole city feels it. Food, coal, everything stops. Marie is beside you, wrapped in a shawl someone pressed around her shoulders. Not just the docks, she whispers. I heard the tailors on Delancey are out. Even the seamstresses. It's spreading. It's true. You can hear it in the chants that echo down streets that never touched the mill. It's no longer just about one factory, one set of machines. It's about all of them. About children who crawl under looms in Brooklyn, who pick thread in Newark, who haul coal in Pennsylvania. The fight is no longer yours. Alone it belongs to every bent spine and bleeding hand. At midday, the police arrive again, thicker than before. They form their line, shields raised, batons drawn, as if preparing for war. But this time, the crowd doesn't scatter. Instead, men link arms. Women stand before the children. A priest from the mission holds his Bible high, and behind them, more banners rise. No more child labor, bread and justice. We starve together or eat together. The police hesitate. They are used to fear. They are used to clubs scattering thin crowds, but this isn't thin anymore. This is a sea, and it's rising. A voice booms above it all. Brothers, sisters. It comes from a wooden platform someone dragged into the square. A man climbs onto it broad-shouldered, with a thick beard and a voice built for crowds. You've never seen him before, but the workers roar at his presence. His name spreads like a current. Joseph Etter, one of the union men. They say, we are animals, he shouts, and the crowd answers with a wave of anger. They say, we are replaceable. But look how the city trembles when we stop. The looms are silent. The ships rot at their docks. The boss's pockets empty. They cannot build their empires without us. The roar shakes the very windows of the mill. They can jail us, he cries. They can beat us. But we are more than machines. We are flesh, and we are blood, and we will not be broken. The chant that rises now is new, fiercer. We are not machines. We are not machines. Even the children shout it until their voices crack. The Pinkertons advance, but the crowd pushes back, not with fists at first, but with sheer mass. Men lock arms tighter. Women scream in defiance. Children clutch the banners high. You are swept in the tide, crushed but unafraid. The fear that lived in your bones yesterday has been burned away, replaced with something you don't have a name. For yet, it feels like standing on the edge of the ocean, waves crashing, unstoppable. Then the clubs fall. The fight is worse than yesterday. You see heads split open, men dragged screaming into police wagons, women beaten to the cobblestones. But you also see something else. Workers pulling each other to safety. Strangers shielding strangers. Fists striking back at the men who have struck you for years. Blood runs. Yes, but it runs with courage. You don't know how long it lasts. Time dissolves in the blur of noise and smoke. At one point, you find yourself shoulder to shoulder with Tommy, both of you swinging wildly at a Pinkerton twice your size. At another, you are pulling a child half buried under trampling feet back into the air. Stefan limps forward with his crutch raised like a weapon, refusing to fall, though his face is white with pain. Marie clings to your sleeve, her shawl torn, her eyes blazing, and then silence. Not peace, not yet, but the uneasy silence that comes when both sides have struck until their arms shake and their lungs burn. The police retreat, dragging the worst wounded among them. The Pinkertons pull back, blood on their coats. The workers stand in the square, bruised and battered, but they are still standing. A cheer erupts, hoarse but thunderous. For the first time in your life, you see the impossible. The machines inside still silent, the gates still shut, the bosses still locked away. The workers' children, women, may know this moment. That night, the city cannot ignore it. Not anymore. Newspapers scream headlines in black ink. Strike spreads. Police beat women and children. Mills shut down. Photographs show the truth no words can twist. Children with split lips. Mothers shielding babies. Banners rising above the smoke. Politicians argue in parlors. Priests thunder from pulpits. Even the rich cannot sip their wine without seeing your faces staring up from their morning papers in your tenement. Ma tends to your bruises with rags soaked in vinegar. Papa listens to the news from the street below, men shouting updates, rumors flying. Marco and Anna sit wide-eyed at your side, listening as if you are a hero from one of the old country stories. You wish you could tell them it was bravery. You wish you could say you weren't terrified. But what you saw today was bigger than bravery, bigger than fear. You saw the city bend, and tomorrow you know it will bend again. Asterisk by morning. The strike has spilled past New York like water pouring over a broken dam. It's in the papers from Boston to Philadelphia, even whispered in Chicago boarding houses. Newsboys shout until their throats crack. Mill children shut city down. Police baton women. Governor urged to act. The photographs, grainy but unmistakable, travel faster than rumors ever could. Children with bandaged heads. Women clutching babies as smoke billows around them. Men with faces smeared in blood, but standing unbroken in the street. For the first time, it feels like the city itself is on your side. Strangers stop you on Orchard Street, pressing bits of food into your hands, muttering words of encouragement in English, Yiddish, Italian, Polish, Irish brogue. Stay strong, they whisper. Don't let them break you. At the mission, there are lines not just of the hungry but of volunteers, college students with soft hands, old veterans from the Civil War, even a few well-dressed women who look like they've never stepped foot south of 14th Street. They bring blankets, kettles of stew, bandages. One of them holds your sister Anna's hand for a moment, her face stricken at the sight of the child's thin arms. Anna smiles shyly. For a moment, you see guilt flash across the woman's face. Guilt, maybe, that her children are tucked in silk sheets, while Anna shares a cornhusk mattress by midday. The square is swelling again. The mill gates are still locked, the machines inside starving. But now the crowd includes men from other trades, dock workers, tailors, bakers with flour, still dusting their aprons. They carry their own banners, not just yours. Bread, not chains. No child in chains. The chant is no longer just 10 hours. It's everything at once. A storm of demands that have been waiting years to be spoken aloud. Tommy finds you in the press of Bodie's, his split lips still scabbed from yesterday. They say the printers are out too, he says. Can't make newspapers without them. Whole city runs on words, and the words are ours now. Stefan limps up beside him, his foot wrapped in rags, sweat beating his face. If the printers stop, if the dockers stop, if the tailors stop, then maybe they have to listen. Maybe they can't ignore us anymore. Marie is quieter, wrapped in her shawl, her skin still pale from blood loss, but her eyes are bright, defiant. They'll try, she says. They'll try harder than ever. And some of us won't make it through. But maybe that's the price. The words hang heavy. None of you argue. You all know it's true. When the police arrive, they don't come with batons raised. Not yet. They line up in their neat rows, horses stamping, but they don't advance. They're waiting. You can feel it in the air, the tension strung tighter than a loom. Then a carriage rattles down the street, and for a heartbeat you think it's Roosevelt again. The crowd surges, shouts, strains forward, but it isn't him. It's a city official in a fine coat, flanked by policemen. He climbs the steps of the mission, raises his hand for silence. Miraculously, the roar dims. Go home, he calls out, his voice thin compared to the thunder of the workers. The city cannot tolerate disorder. Return to your jobs, and management will review your grievances in due time. The laughter that erupts isn't kind. It's raw, bitter, 1,000 throats spitting back the years of broken promises. Due time, someone shouts, we've waited long enough. Another voice, we are starving. A third, no more children in chains. The official pales. He wasn't prepared for this, for the sound of the city united. He stammers. Something about law and order, about responsibility, about patience, but the words vanish beneath the chant rising like a storm. We are not machines. We are not machines. And then, like before, the Pinkertons come. Not dozens this time, hundreds. Clubs, rifles slung across their backs, faces set like stone. The line of them stretches the length of the square. For a moment, fear prickles again, sharp and cold. You are 12. You are small. They are men, armed, ruthless. But when the order to advance comes, something unexpected happens. The crowd doesn't retreat. It surges forward. Men throw up their arms, women lock hands around their children, and the Pinkertons, though brutal, are swallowed in the sea. The clash is chaos, worse than anything you've seen. Screams, shouts, the crack of wood on bone. But you also see courage. Dock workers swinging their ropes like whips. Mothers shielding their children, refusing to move. Teenagers your age, Polly. Irish, Italian, Jewish rushing forward not with weapons, but with fury. You are knocked to the ground once, the breath punched out of you. Someone's boot comes down inches from your face, but Tommy's hand yanks you back up, shouting your name. Stefan swings his crutch with both hands, his face twisted in pain and defiance. Marie clings to a banner pole like it's the only thing, keeping her alive, and still the chants rise, ragged but unbroken. 10 hours, bread and justice. We are not machines. Hours later, when the fighting finally sputters into exhaustion, the Pinkertons retreat again. Not because they chose to, but because they couldn't break you. Not this time, not with the city. Watching, not with the cameras flashing, capturing every bruise, every drop of blood, every child's face screaming defiance into the smoke. That night, Orchard Street glows with lanterns. Not from vendors or carts, but from vigils. Candles line the steps of the mission. Mothers sing to their children. Men whisper of plans, of unions, of the next strike. The city hasn't fallen, but it has shifted. You can feel it under your feet, like the ground itself is changing shape at home. Papa listens to the neighbors outside, his hands shaking as he turns the paper in the lamplight. Governor promises investigation, calls for child labor reform. The headline sprawls across the front. For a moment, silence fills your tiny room, as though no one dares breathe. Then Marco whispers, "Does that mean Anna won't have to go?" You want to say yes. You want to promise. But you know it's not over. Not yet. The owners won't give up their profit without clawing back every penny. The politicians won't act without pressure, without more blood, without more proof. But, for the first time, maybe, the future doesn't feel impossible. Anna curls against you on the cornhusk mattress, her small hand in yours. "You're not a machine," she murmurs sleepily, as if testing the words. "You're my brother." And in the dark, bruised and aching, you smile. Because for once, you believe her. Asterisk, the next morning begins with a quiet that feels unnatural. Like the city is holding a glass in the air and waiting to see if it shatters. You dress slowly because every movement argues with your body. Ma folds a rag of vinegar and presses it to your shoulder, where a Pinkerton's club left a violet print. Of his day's work, she doesn't ask if you're going back. She knows. She ties the rag tight and kisses your forehead the way she used to when fever was your worst enemy. On Orchard, a thin snow is falling, not enough to soften anything, just enough to make the street look like someone tried to erase it and lost. Courage. The square isn't roaring yet. It's murmuring, a low tide of voices, the kind people use in church or at wakes. Someone starts a Hyman Irish tune, the kind with a spine of sadness and a soul of stubbornness. Others hum along. It slides between languages easily, because grief doesn't need translation. Settlement workers organize crates into tables. One man pours coffee that tastes like burnt hope and still feels like kindness going down. A schoolteacher with ink's fingers and a face that looks younger than her eyes passes out slates and chalk to a cluster of kids who should be in a classroom. She shows Anna how to write her name in big, careful letters. Your sister beams like she's just discovered. Secret door. The union leaflets arrive, folded in jacket sleeves, tucked in shawls, palmed like contraband, though they're just paper. 10 hours, no child labor, safety guards, pay for injury. The words are blunt and beautiful. The printer's apprentice, who hands you a stack, looks like he should be chasing a hoop down a summer street. Not watching for police. Distribute. Near the bakery, he whispers, "They won't hit you as hard if people are holding bread." You go, Tommy flanks you, swollen lip healing into a story he will tell for years. Stefan limps behind, stubborn as a hook in a fish's mouth. Marie says she rests and you want to believe her, but you've never seen rest look so much like a lie. By mid-morning, the square swells again. No speeches this time, just a steady occupation that feels like breathing. The mill windows watch, with their black eyes. Inside, the machines are still. You can almost hear their hunger through the walls. A foreman appears at the roofline, and vanishes like a bad thought. You're handing out leaflets when the sound reaches you. A quick intake of breath from a dozen throats at once. You turn. Marie is standing, and then she's not. She folds like a letter someone finally stopped pretending they'd answer. The shawl hits first, then her knees, then the ground. For a heartbeat, the crowd freezes the way an animal freezes before it decides whether to run or charge. Marie, you're already moving. Tommy is there with you. Stefan's crutch clatters as he drops beside her. Her face is chalk under the dirt. When you say her name, her eyes flutter, but they don't find you. Blood is dark through her skirt, old and new both. She whispers something you don't catch. The words are heavier than her voice can carry. Make way. The school teacher appears with a nurse from the settlement, a woman with rolled sleeves and a jaw that tells you she wins most. Of her arguments, the crowd opens like a book. Together you carry Marie to the mission basement. The air down there is warmer than the street and edged with iron and soap. Beds are doors laid on crates. The nurse lays Marie on one and tucks rags under her, both. Gentle and fast. We need a doctor, she says. A real one. Charity hospital, someone offers. And the nurse nods, but grimly as, if the word charity tastes like something spoiled, I'll go. You say, even though your legs feel like borrowed furniture, you'll stay, the nurse says without looking at you. You too, she points to Tommy and Stefan. Find Father O'Malley. Tell him we need his cart. Tommy bolts. Stefan lurches, because pain is slower than purpose. You stand there with useless burning hands, and watch as the nurse does what the factory never learned to. Treat a girl like a person. She raps, she presses, she keeps her voice level even when Marie drifts and the room tilts. Hey, the nurse says to you without glancing up. What's your name, Joey? Joey, bring me water. Clean, and don't hover unless your hovering is useful. You fetch, you hold. You become a pair of hands that obey instruction instead of a machine. When the priest arrives with a handcart that once hauled coal and now hauls mercy, you help lift. Marie groans. You whisper in her ear not promises, not lies, just sounds that mean here, here, here. The nurse climbs aboard, one palm pressed against the bandage, as if keeping a secret inside her dot in the alley. The cartwheels find every cobble, and you hate the street for being itself. The walk to the hospital is a pilgrimage no one asked to take. People part and stare and bless. A Pinkerton at the corner watches with something that might be confusion, because pain has never taught him anything. The charity hospital smells like bleach trying to win a fight with everything else. A clerk behind a desk looks up and looks. Through you, the nurse doesn't ask, she announces. Admit, severe blood loss, industrial exposure. The clerk starts to recite rules, and the nurse stops him with one look so sharp it could cut a knot in rope. Now, she says, and somehow, now becomes a law. They wheel Marie through swinging doors that understand too much. You and Tommy and Stefan are left in a hallway that couldn't care less about your names. A boy about your age sits 2 chairs down, his right arm bandaged to the shoulder. He stares at the ceiling like it owes him an apology. An old woman croons to a bundle that doesn't move. Somewhere a man shouts, the way men shout when they know shouting won't help. Time gets heavy. You want to break it in half. A doctor appears, a thin man with kind eyes drowning in exhaustion. She'll live, he says, and the relief is so violent it hurts. But she cannot return to the mill. Not tomorrow, not next week, maybe never. You nod as if you are in charge of the rules. We'll tell her, you say, and realize how little you've ever been able to tell Marie anything. Back in the square, the hymn has turned into a steady, low chant, the kind you can keep up for hours. without eating your voice. You pass by the baker handing out ends of yesterday's loaves, like a king redistributing treasure. He slips one to Anna and winks, and she looks at the bread like it is a certificate. The printers arrive with a new stack. Mothers, bring your children to Mulberry Park hot soup, lessons, safety. The leaflets name the settlement house and a time. They'll arrest us if we gather, someone worries. Then they arrest us, the teacher says, and keeps handing out paper to small, determined fists. You move through the day like you are to people, the one who stands in the square and the one who counts minutes until visiting hours, when you return to the hospital after dusk. Marie is awake enough to be angry. It's a good sign. I missed the afternoon, she says, voice rough. You lot make a mess without me. We brought a hymn, you say, and a plan. She tries to smile and then remembers her body. What plan? Shifts, you tell her. Real ones. The dock workers showed us how to list names. Dawn team, midday team, night sentry. Mothers in the church basement, spinning soup into miracles. Settlement teachers, taking the littlest to the park. Priests, negotiating with the captain so he loses his temper in public where the cameras can see it. And the printer's ink at cost. They said the words are ours. Marie closes her eyes, not from pain this time, but because the picture is something worth looking at. You sound like a leader, she says. I sound like someone who's tired of reacting, you answer. Tomorrow we don't wait for their hit. We arrive first. On your way out, you pass a ward with curtains half drawn, and recognize a face, the Polish girl whose arm the machine ate. She is asleep, mouth open, hair shorn to a stubble where the gears took their tacks. Her mother crochets at the bedside with a concentration that could hold a bridge up. You stand in the doorway a second longer than you should, then move because looking too long feels like theft. The city at night during a strike is a different animal. It stalks you with its quiet. Gas lamps burn like thoughts no one wants to say out loud. Two policemen stand under one, arguing in whispers about pay and babies and whether their uniforms make them good men or just men in uniforms. A boy your age runs past with a pocket full of leaflets and a grin sharp enough to cut hemp rope. He tosses you one mid-stride. Tomorrow, noon silent march. Children first. Back in the room, Papa is mending a tear in his only coat with a needle Ma has used. On everything from shirts to wounds. He doesn't look up when you enter. He speaks to the air. They say the governor will send a committee, he murmurs. They say Washington will look. Let them look, you say. We're not hiding. Ma hands you a bowl. The soup is more hot than food and tastes like the best thing you've had all week. Marco and Anna sit close, as if proximity could be armor. When you tell them Marie will live, Anna's shoulders drop an inch you didn't realize she'd been holding. Up, you don't sleep so much as lie still and let the mattress hold you. The corn husks whisper, but tonight they whisper plans. Morning arrives without asking, and the square fills without being told. No chance at first, just quiet bodies, 1,000 of them, then more, making a sound like snow when it falls in thick, steady sheets. Children line up at the front because the leaflet said so, and because the adults refuse to let a policeman, stick, be the only thing the city sees. You find Anna's hand and put it in yours. You walk beside me, you tell her. She nods, solemn as a judge. Chalk from yesterday's letters still smudged on her fingers. At noon, the bell on the mission strikes once, then twice, then again, and the crowd begins to move. No chance. no banners thrust high, just a river of feet and faces, mothers and fathers and uncles and friends, and children in the lead with their chins set like small hills refusing to be moved. The police don't know what to do with the silence. That loud, the Pinkertons look to their captain. The captain looks to the cameras. The cameras look to the children, and the shutters click like 1,000 tiny doors opening at once. You pass the mill. For a long heartbeat, it feels like the whole building inhales. Somewhere inside, a foreman lifts a hand toward a lever and thinks better of it. The looms hold their breath. Even the smoke seems to pause in the stack. You keep walking, past the bakery that gave yesterday's bread, past the pushcarts whose owners tuck coins into kids' pockets like luck, past the settlement house where teachers wait with slates and soup, and as you walk, the silence changes. It becomes a promise at the corner. A man in a fine coat watches with his hat in his hands. He looks like he hasn't touched a day of hard work in years. His eyes follow Anna's face and don't flinch. When you draw even with him, he steps forward, not close enough to scare, just close enough to be heard. "What is it you want, son?" he asks, voice soft, like maybe he's asking himself. You don't look up at him, because this answer isn't for him alone. It's for the city. It's for the machines. It's for the paper tomorrow. A childhood, you say, and our mothers' backs unbroken. He nods once, a small motion like a seed being buried. You keep moving. Behind you, the crowd keeps coming, and in front of you, the street makes room, and above you, windows open, and faces lean out, and the city all of IT has to decide whether to be the place that looks away or the place that looks and changes by dusk. The square is a camp against soup, steaming songs, low plans inked by candlelight. You lie down on the church steps with your head on your rolled jacket and watch the stars elbow through the city's smoke. Somewhere not far, a press clacks out a fresh run of leaflets. Somewhere closer, a baby laughs at nothing in particular. You let both sounds stitch the day together. When sleep finally takes you, it's not the sleep of collapse. It's the sleep of someone who knows exactly why he'll get up when the morning comes. Asterisk. Morning doesn't announce itself with a whistle this time. It begins with bells church. Bells up and down the Lower East Side, their echoes crossing like lines on a map. They aren't wrong for mass. They're wrong for you, for all of you. You. Roll off the stone, step outside the mission, stiff from the cold, and blink against the grey dawn. The square is already alive. Women boil cauldrons of soup on makeshift stoves. Men are tying cloth around their throats, not against dust, but against tear gas, which someone swears the police will bring. Children chase one another between the banners. Laughter, strange but welcome, proof that even in the middle of a fight for survival, childhood isn't completely gone. Anna is among them, chalk dust still on her fingers from yesterday's lessons. At the settlement, she runs to you with a crust of bread clutched like treasure. "They gave it to me," she says proudly. She tears it in half and presses the bigger piece into your palm before biting into her own. Your throat tightens. She shouldn't know how to give like that, not at 7. But this strike is teaching children things school never did. Word runs like fire through the camp. Roosevelt's aides are in the city. They're meeting the factory owners. The rumor shifts with every retelling. Some say the governor himself will walk into the square. Others swear it's just another committee. Either way, people are polishing their stories like soldiers sharpening blades. Tell them about your arm, one mother coaches her son. Show them your scars, a father whispers to his daughter. The city's children are about to testify with their bodies. By mid-morning, a column of men arrives at the far end of Orchard Street. Suits, stiff hats, clipboards, notebooks. They look like they've never missed a meal, but their eyes widen at the sight of the square. Thousands of workers stand shoulder to shoulder, silent and unflinching. The mill's brick hulk looms behind you. Windows dark, looms quiet, a wounded beast sulking in its cage. One of the suited men steps forward. His face is pale, his spectacles fogging in the cold. He clears his throat. "We are here on behalf of Governor Roosevelt," he begins, voice thin against the silence. "We wish to assess conditions." The crowd doesn't boo, doesn't jeer. Instead, a woman with a shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders lifts her baby high. The child's tiny chest marked with the same hacking cough everyone knows. "Assess this," she says. The silence cracks. Others step forward. A boy of 9, his sleeve pinned where an arm used to be. A girl with hands bandaged from a loom's bite. Stefan, limping but unbowed, telling how he dragged himself to work on a broken foot because hunger was worse than pain. You too, when the AIDS pen hovers over you, lift your scarred hands and say, "I am 12. This is what 12 looks like." In America, the scribes write faster. The cameras flash, each burst catching the tears, the anger, the raw proof of what industry has been feasting on. But not everyone in the crowd is still. At the edge of the square, Pinkertons cluster, clubs at their belts, pistols at their hips. Their captain's jaw is set like stone. The city is watching, and they don't like it. You can feel the tension rising like steam from the cobblestones. Then dash voices. High, clear, unwavering. A line of children begins to sing. It's the hymn from yesterday, but slower, steadier, a kind of defiance only children can make sound innocent. We are not machines. Their voices braid together, cutting sharper than any baton. Adults join in, rough throats layering beneath, until the square itself seems to sing. The Pinkertons hesitate. Clubs hang in their hands like tools they suddenly aren't sure how to use. A photographer rushes forward, snaps a shot, the children singing with hands held, the guards frozen like statues behind them. That picture will leave the square faster than any club can swing. The aide from Roosevelt's office looks shaken. He raises his voice over the song. Governor Roosevelt demands immediate reforms. Hours reduced. Children removed from the mills. Safety inspections enforced. These orders will be carried to Albany and to Washington. For a moment, you don't believe you heard it right. Around you, faces shift from rage to disbelief, then to something brighter and scarier, hope. Real hope. The crowd roars not. A chant this time, not practiced. Just a raw exhale of every chest at once. You grab Anna's hand, squeeze until she squeals. Tommy laughs, a sound so wild you hardly recognize it. Stefan limps forward and swings his crutch like a banner. Even Marie Frel, leaning on the nurse from the hospital, forces her way to the front and lifts her chin high. The mill behind you stays dark. The machines are starving. And for the first time in your life, you believe they might stay that way. That night, the square becomes something more than a camp. It becomes a festival. Bread is broken and passed until even the hungriest child eats. Songs in Italian, Irish, Yiddish, Polish rise into the cold air, mixing until the city itself can't tell them apart. For once, no one cares. For once, difference is strength. You lie down beside Anna and Marco under the stars. The cobblestones, your mattress. and you don't mind. The bells ring again, and you don't hate them. They sound like tomorrow. Asterisk, the owners did not surrender. Quietly, by dawn the next day, the headlines screamed in 2 languages, one column calling you heroes of the people, another sneering unruly children hold city hostage. The mill bosses poured money into lawyers, editors, and politicians, trying to paint you as pawns, as ungrateful wretches who should be thankful for bread crusts and pennies. They promised shareholders production would resume, that the strike was nothing but a tantrum. But the city streets told a different story. For the 2nd morning in a row, the factory doors remained locked. No smoke rose from the chimneys. Hum of machines filled the district. Instead, the square grew larger still. Workers from Brooklyn ferried across the river. From Hoboken, Jersey men marched over the bridges, their boots pounding in rhythm. Even the elevated trains screeched with banners hung from their windows. No more child slaves. And yet, the backlash came sharp. A new line of Pinkertons, bolstered by fresh recruits, stood at the ready. They weren't here to scatter you. They were here to crush you. Rifles slung over shoulders, bayonets glinting in the grey morning light. Behind them, a wall of police wagons waited. You could smell the iron of the chains, even from across the square. Papa saw them too. He pressed a hand on your shoulder. If they come, you run, he said quietly. His face was a mask of exhaustion and fear. Don't be a hero, not yet. But you shook your head, not in rebellion but in certainty. There was nowhere to run. Not anymore. When the order came, it was different this time. No measured advance. No waiting for stones or jeers. The line of men surged forward at once, horses lunging, batons swinging. The crowd buckled. Mothers screamed. Men locked arms, forming a human wall. You found yourself clutching Anna's hand, dragging her behind a pile of crates while Marco clung to your sleeve. Smoke burst into the air, sting and fire in your lungs. Not just coal smoke this time. Gas. Tear gas. Your eyes burned. Anna sobbed, coughing. Around you, the square became chaos. Bodies surged in every direction. The pink drove wedges through the crowd, breaking it apart. Children vanished in the crush. You fought to keep your siblings close, but hands slipped, feet tangled, and suddenly Marco was gone. Panic roared in your chest, louder than any machine ever had. You shoved through bodies calling his name. The smoke tore your throat raw, but you kept shouting. Then a glimpse, his small figure cornered against a wagon, a Pinkerton raising his club. You lunged without thinking, slamming into the man's side. The blow meant for Marco cracked against the cobblestones. Pain shot up your arm where the butt of the club grazed you, but you didn't let go. You wrapped yourself around your brother, daring them to strike again. But they didn't, not because of mercy, because a wall of dockworkers came barreling in, fists like sledgehammers, voices roaring. They smashed into the Pinkertons with the fury of men who'd carried too many coffins. The line broke. The square heaved and swelled again, the tide turning. You staggered back, dragging Marco to the crates where Anna waited. Her face streaked with soot and tears, but alive. Around you, the air rang with fists on steel, with shouts in a dozen tongues, with the sharp crack of rifle butts on cobblestones. The strike had become war. Hours blurred. You don't remember the details, only flashes. Tommy hurling a stone through the glass window of the mill office. Stefan on the ground, swinging his crutch until they dragged him away. Marie, pale as death, clutching a banner taller than she was, refusing to let it fall. you yourself bleeding. From your scalp, the world spinning, but still on your feet. By dusk, the square was wreckage. Crates overturned, glass shattered, blood smeared on cobblestones. But the Pinkertons were retreating again, limping, dragging their wounded. And in the smoke and the ruin, the workers still stood. Not all too many were gone, arrested or carried away on stretchers, but enough to matter, enough to prove you couldn't be broken. That night, newsboys ran with extra editions. The photographs were already everywhere, children choking in clouds of gas, women with split brows still singing, men with chains around their wrists raising fists to the sky. America saw it all. Not just New York, Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia, even Washington. The country could no longer pretend it didn't know. At home, you sat on the cornhusk mattress, Marco's head in your lap, Anna asleep against your side. Papa stared at his blistered hands, Ma at the thin soup she stirred without appetite. Outside, the chants still echoed, softer now, but steady. For the first time, Papa's voice cracked. Maybe you were right, Joey. Maybe this is the only way. His eyes glistened in the lamplight. God help us all. And you lay back, every muscle screaming, every scar burning, but your heart fierce, because you knew it wasn't over. But you also knew at last they were listening. Asterisk, the strike did not end in one day, nor in one battle. It stretched into weeks, into endless nights of hunger, arrests, and fear. But the seed had been planted, and nothing could uproot it now. Each morning, the mill gates stayed shut. The machines starved. The owners raged in their offices, telegrams flying to Albany and Washington, begging for protection, for soldiers, for anything to break the tide. But every headline, every photograph of a bruised child or a woman's swollen face, hardened public opinion against them. The city could not unsee what it had seen. America could not unknow what it now knew. You kept going back to the square. Some days you marched. Some days you simply sat among the crowd, guarding Anna and Marco while Ma ladled thin soup to anyone who came. Stefan's foot worsened, and yet he hobbled to every rally, his crutch thudding like a drumbeat. Marie never returned to the mill, her body too frail, but she became a voice. Her Irish lilt rising above the chants, reminding everyone why they were there. Even Anthony, once your rival, walked beside you with a split lip and a clenched fist, and then change, small at first, almost unbelievable. A committee from Albany announced new inspections. Newspapers began calling for an end to child labor, not just in editorials, but in full-throated campaigns. Priests thundered from pulpits about the sin of starving children for profit. Politicians, once indifferent, now lined up to be seen on your side, to be photographed, shaking hands with children who should have been in school instead of on picket lines. The mills tried to reopen with scabs, but the machines sat empty. No one would cross the line, not after what had happened in the square. Even newcomers fresh off the ships turned their backs. The tide was too strong. Weeks later, when the agreement finally came, you could hardly believe it. Hours shortened, wages raised, inspectors promised, children under a certain age barred from the mills. It wasn't perfect, not yet, not by a long mile, but it was a beginning. For the first time, the law bent toward you instead of against you. Years passed. You grew taller, older, scarred in ways no child should be, but you left the mill behind. You learned to read better at the settlement, joined meetings where workers taught one another not just letters, but how to organize, how to demand dignity. Marie lived, frail but fierce, becoming a voice in rallies long after her body had given out. Stefan lost his foot, but not his fire. He became one of those voices too, crutch raised like a flag. Tommy carried his missing fingers into the Union. Halsen never stopped telling the story of what happened on Orchard Street, and you never forgot that first morning whistle, the one that dragged you out of sleep into the jaws of the machine. But you never forgot the silence, either, the first day the looms went quiet, when children's voices rose louder than iron. Decades later, when your own children asked why they had summers free, why the law said no boss could work them past 8 hours, why their hands stayed soft instead of bleeding, you told them. You told them about the corn husk mattress, the frost inside the window, the smell of cotton dust that never left your lungs. You told them about Marie and Stefan and Tommy, about Roosevelt's promise, about the banners raised against rifles, about the day the city bent to the will of its poorest children, and when they shook their heads, saying, "It can't have been that bad, Papa, not here, not in America," you only smiled sadly, because you knew they would never truly understand. That was the point. You had fought so they wouldn't have to. Now, when the factory whistle blows in some far-off memory, you no longer wake in fear. You lie in a warm bed, your family safe, your body at peace, and you whisper into the darkness, "We were not machines. We were children, and we won." Asterisk.